Welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show. One of my favorite topics we're going to have today with an awesome guest. Our guest is plenty of things. She's a coach, she is an author, she is a motivator, she's a speaker, and she also has some interesting things that she's done, some incredible challenges, or I would say, uh, like I would call them Guinness records for me, but maybe they're not, that way. But they're definitely, achievements that very few
Mhm.
have done. And we're gonna talk about all that. And her main theme is a theme that we all need to really pay attention to: is how to live longer, healthier, happier, with a full life of vitality, and just like being a good, body, soul, mind, the whole nine, right? I mean, you we can live long, but the idea is to live a healthier long life as opposed to live long and suffer in the meantime. Anyway, enough said. I mumble sometimes, but without any further ado, I have with me Tracy Herbert. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so fantastic to be here. I look forward to spending some time with you today.
Are we going to spend a whole hour of fun and stuff? But first things first. I mean, I do a brief introduction, but never gives justice to who you are really. So, and the best one that can do that is you. So, Tracy, give us a little bit about Tracy. What got you into the work you do today, and because it's phenomenal stuff. And I know you and I got a brief intro before the show, and you thrive in this is something you enjoy, is you want to help people be better, and frankly that's exactly what we want just as many people to get this vibe from you, and advice and insights. Hopefully they can apply that in real life and get a better life. So Tracy, your story.
I was 17 years old, lying in a hospital bed in ICU, fighting for my life. I was hearing the beeps of all these crazy machines and everything, IV stuck in my arms. And the doctor walks in, he puts his hands on his hips. And he says, young lady, you're going to be dead in 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications. You're going to go blind. You'll have your legs amputated. You'll be on kidney dialysis for the rest of your life. And then you're going to never be able to have any children. And as he's turning around and walking out of the ICU room, he said, oh, and by the way, you're going to have to take several shots a day for the rest of your life because there isn't a cure. You've got juvenile diabetes. And he left. And 17, I'm laying there going, what? What did he just say? I never knew anybody with diabetes, didn't know anything about it. And I just kept saying, I'm going to die in 20 years. I'm just a kid. I don't want to die in 20 years. I had my whole life mapped out in front of me. And then I started through the 2.5 weeks in the hospital. Everybody kept telling me the same thing. You're going to die in 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications, and life isn't worth living. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. So when I got out of the hospital, I'm trying to live a normal teenage life, learning to give myself shots and trying to figure this all out. And I was getting ready to go to a movie with all my friends. And my mom reminded me when I was running out the door, Tracy, remember, you can't eat anything. Now, she didn't say it because we didn't have the money, or she didn't say it because she was mean. She just was helping me learn the discipline with living with diabetes. Because back then, the meal plans were totally different than they are today. So just like you did with your friends, you walk into a movie theater and instantly you smell the popcorn. And, all my friends were getting the popcorn, the candy, the soft drinks. And when it was my turn, I asked the concession stand clerk for just a small cup so I could get a cup of water out of the drinking fountain. And she looked at me like I was from outer space. And I said, no, I'll be glad to pay for this. And this was way before diet soft drinks, way before bottled water. And she said, no. And I was crushed. I ran out of the movie theater screaming, crying, why me? Why me? Everything in my life was saying, you can't, you can't, you can't. And I'm driving home. I got in bed and I'm sobbing, a 17-year-old kid, realizing life is over. And I said, Tracy, you've got two choices. You can be better or you can be bitter. What are you going to choose? That moment, my life changed. And I said, I'm going to be better. And I've lived now 47 years with this diabetes diagnosis. And I live every day with the idea that I'm going to be better and not bitter. And so what I started doing was I started going to the medical school libraries. Again, this was way before the internet. And I started researching everything I could on how to live a longer, healthier life despite my diabetes. And it was so fascinating with what I was learning that I wasn't hearing from all these medical doctors that were telling me the same thing. And I started believing, wait a minute, Tracy, you can do this. You can do this. And so for years and years and years at this time, I'd been researching and trying different things on me. I always say I'm a guinea pig because I try things on me first before I even have my clients try it, because I want to make sure this is actual science and it works. And then in my mid 30s, I started feeling really sick and old, 30s. And I started feeling like, well, maybe the doctors were right. As I was coming along with my 20-year anniversary of my diagnosis, in mid 30s, you shouldn't feel this way. And I do have 2 children by this time. So I was worn down with kids, but everybody, all the doctors said you couldn't have children. Not only do I had two healthy children at that time, but they were also very healthy. And so I started researching again, and I started realizing what I'm eating is just talk for breakfast. The healthy diet for breakfast in America, it was not working for me because my blood sugars would spike and then they would crash. And this happens for everybody with or without diabetes. And when your blood sugar crashes, that's when you realize you have no energy, but also you're more tempted to eat the unhealthy foods. So with my researcher's cap on, I started trying different things, doing what they were doing around the world. I started eating salads, healthy proteins, healthy fats, and I started feeling better. So in the middle of the day, I'm having more energy than any of my coworkers. And people are asking me, what are you doing? So I'm telling them what I'm doing. And then I'm doing the same thing then for lunch because, people go out for pizza or Italian food. And the same thing happens after lunch. What do? They reach for a soft drink or they reach for candy because they're exhausted. Again, their blood sugar spikes with or without diabetes, and then it crashes. It's when that crashing happens is when you just absolutely lose control, but also don't have any energy. And I started transforming my diet. And then I started having more and more energy. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm on to something then. And then maybe about 10 years ago, I wrote my first book. And it's based on medical research on living with diabetes. And it all came down to my 3M formula. Because when you start thinking about why am I still alive and what am I doing, it all boils down to these 3Ms. And if you don't hear anything else today, listen to this because this is critical. Mind. You have to have the right mindset and realize you can do anything you set your mind to. You could have an apple versus a donut, and you're going to be so much happier that you did have that. You can get out of bed in the morning and exercise, and then instead of hitting the snooze button, you have more energy where you're going to be more productive throughout the day. And then the second M is mouth. We have to learn to eat to live. Don't live to eat. Because when we choose foods that hurt us and doesn't help us, we're going to be sitting there exhausted and tired and not wanting to do anything. And the third M is move. We have to get out of our chairs and move more. And these 3Ms, if you look at it like sprockets, they all work together. So if you have the right mindset, you're going to start eating the right kind of foods, which then in turn will help you start exercising more. And I'm not talking about running marathons or anything. I'm just talking about simple little things that you can do every day to get more movement in your day. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Park the car further away. But when you start eating healthy, you have the right mindset, then you start moving more. Your whole body is just holistically so much healthier and so much happier. That's why I have more energy in my 60s than I had in my 30s. And it's amazing when I meet these young people, or I have 6 grandkids, and they're always like, how are you doing this? And our kids are like, can't keep up with us because they're not following what we do at our house. And what we do is we eat to live, don't live to eat. And we move more. We do something every day. And I've been exercising some form or fashion for almost 47 years, every single day, because I need that to live with my diabetes. And my blood sugars are not perfect, but really well controlled, because nothing is perfect in this life. Perfection doesn't work. Obviously. But when I spoke, when I speak to especially doctors, and I spoke at Harvard a few years ago, and I got off the stage, and the doctors were asking me, "How are you still alive, and what are you doing?" And I knew then, okay, I'm doing something right because people are beginning to ask me because. Technically, I'm not supposed to be alive, but I am because you and I are sitting here talking. But it's amazing that I have none of the complications that were guaranteed to happen. I have healthy children and I'm just living life to the fullest. And I have more passion, more energy today. And as I look forward to my 70s, I'm like, what am I going to do then? Because I'm just going to continue to have more energy. Am I as fast as I was in my 40s at running or riding my bicycle? Of course not. But I still get out there and compete against all the youngins all the time.
Ooh. Well, Tracy. First of all, I just want to salute you for I guess not challenging, but proving, that we can't just tell people that you're gonna die. I mean, yes, the science can say one thing, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
up to the human to do what's
Mm-hmm.
necessary to do that. And your story, I think it's more than a message of hope to everyone watching and listening right now. And diabetes or otherwise, as a matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, ultimately, first of all, diabetes and I are close, and I don't have diabetes personally, but I can have it because of genetics, because my mom
Mm-hmm.
is diabetic, and I have been with my mom living with diabetes for the last 30 plus years, and it's difficult to manage,
Mm-hmm.
and you have
Very
to do a lot
difficult.
of things. Now, of course, if you don't watch your food and if you don't exercise, things get a little
Mm-hmm.
bit worse. But
Mm-hmm.
your story started, early on, and my mom got it when she was older. But in your case, you're young. I mean, you said it. I'm 17. The world is
Mm-hmm.
mine, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like you get this news that is destructive. Like it's like the doomsday message.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
doomed. You're out. That's it. You have no future. And to be honest with you, like we hear about what is it, bedside manners. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I am not a big fan of when doctor tells you the worst, right? It is a practice that is in the West more than in some other parts
Mm-hmm.
of the world.
Yes.
In other parts of the world, they kind of break it down to you like, well, we need you to do more and stuff, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't tell you like, listen, you have 3 months and you're out. I,
Yes.
I mean, if that was intended for us to know that we're gonna have 3 months or 7 months and 8 months, we would have already known when our expiration date will be, and that's it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That give us a privilege of not knowing uh that way, right? So we don't have to, because it's like, the what is it called, the anticipation of that is worse than that itself, right? You can't,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately it is practice that is very common, and not everybody takes it the same way. Now somebody else could have made, literally a decision to end their life, and that was it. I mean, that could just be
Right.
that, right?
Right.
And for our people watching and listening, this is exactly, a good way to look at it. No matter what you hear, there's
Mm-hmm.
always second opinion, third opinion, and or
Mm-hmm.
do whatever it's necessary to thrive and survive, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and make it work, triumph, as your book states, right? you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's far, it's very possible. I mean, I've heard these stories before, but we have you right in front of us sharing this, and I know you've shared this over and over in national television and different places, and you're the
Mm-hmm.
writer, you did all these things, and
Mm-hmm.
and you just spoke at Harvard, and
Mm-hmm.
that's big, stuff, and when the doctors are questioning you, that's a big deal. But what
Exactly.
you've done is what anyone can be doing,
Exactly.
whereby you picked up some good practices for life. And
Mm-hmm.
those practices, by the way, to your point, diabetes or not, we should all have them. We should eat
Exactly.
healthier. We should not, like you said, we need to eat to live, not live to eat, because
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately we do that. We live to eat. Most,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's eating everywhere, anytime, no time, that just,
Mm-hmm.
showing us stuff. You're watching a
Mm-hmm.
movie, you're crunching, you're binge eating
Mm-hmm.
left and right. We go everywhere, snacks, 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 and none of the stuff is healthy to start with. I mean, you
No.
look at the ingredients. I mean, we had the discussion a couple of days ago where I am today more than ever looking at every single what do you call those ingredients in these
Mm-hmm.
products out there.
Mm-hmm.
You're lost in the list of ingredients. You're not sure what you have in, and you can't even find really healthy food these days. It's very difficult. So the
Mm-hmm.
balance of that is difficult. There are sacrifices. You had to make all the necessary changes in your lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the three M's, and of
Mm-hmm.
course that's the first thing, mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually applies to everything, folks. You want to
Mm-hmm.
live a healthier, happier life overall. your
Mm-hmm.
mindset has to shift to think everything positive. The
Exactly.
minute the minute you have negativity, it's not going to support everything positive in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore everything else can fall. Whether it's your business, your health, your relationship, all that stuff goes downhill when your mindset is in the wrong side.
Oh,
And it's a
absolutely.
simple look. Turn from left to right
Mm-hmm.
and you can do it. Now, is it easy? Of course not. I mean, it's not as simple as what I did. I made it simple, but the fact is a choice, and we hear it all the time. And if you listen to any motivator or inspirational talk, this is exactly. It starts with mindset, and mindset is
Mm-hmm.
just that. But you still have to take the action. You can
Exactly.
make like, okay, I'm going to make the determination. We're going to make changes, but it takes more than just talking. It's the walking, right? In your case, you not only walked, you ran, you cycled. You did quite a bit of that, right? you know
But the thing is, though, when you start believing that trash, that negative stuff that, we all think negatively, you have to replace it with something positive. And, I'm a big believer when I say something negative, I have to say five positive things afterwards because we can all get in that negative spiral real quick. And so I don't ever do that. And actually, the doctor, I think that everybody wants to beat up the doctor that gave me my diagnosis. And I'm like, that was the best thing that happened to me because it got me set as a 17-year-old saying, not going to happen to me, not on my watch. And now in my mid 60s, I still have that attitude. They're like, you're not acting like an older lady. I'm like, I'm not an older lady. It's all in the mindset. It's all go back to you have to make choices in life. And you can have the unhealthy snacking, like you were mentioning earlier. You could take the bag of chips to your chair and watch TV all night, which we do that sometimes. Everybody does. But what you want to do is instead of taking the whole bag of chips and start eating mindlessly, which was what we do, put a few of those unhealthy snacks on a plate and then set the snack aside and say, I'm not having any more. So you already have a plan. And then you just eat the snacks, a little bit of snack instead of eating a whole bag of chips or cookies or whatever it is you're going to eat. It's really not difficult when you start feeling so much more energy. And usually with my clients, it takes them about a couple of weeks, maybe 10 days to 2 weeks. And then they're feeling horrible because they're giving up all that processed food. They're giving up the sugars and stuff like that. But then once they make that transition, then they're like, man, I have so much more energy. I feel so much better. Bam, that's where you want to be. And that's why it's so much easier. It's a challenge to prepare, but you have to be prepared in order not to fail. And it's the same thing, a lot of people in their 30s right now are horribly, horribly unhealthy. And I would love to share. Can I share a story with you about a lady I met on my bike ride?
Please, of
Okay.
course, we
So,
want to hear those.
okay. So to make it clear to everybody, so to celebrate, and I use quotes, celebrate my 40th anniversary of my type 1 diagnosis of diabetes, I do something every decade to celebrate because I choose to be better, not bitter. I decide to ride my bicycle from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and then I finish at the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City, and then on the Dr. Oz show. And about the second day on my ride, I was waiting for the light to turn green in Sacramento. And I just had that gut feeling. I kind of happened to look at a lady who was sitting at the bus stop. And she said, must be nice to be able to ride your bike across a city. And I said, well, actually, I'm going to New York City. But I got off the bike and I started talking to her. And she was the sweetest lady in her early 30s, morbidly obese. She had the prettiest smile of anybody I've ever seen. And she was telling me she was so embarrassed because she was waiting for her brother to come around the corner from their house to pick her up because she couldn't even walk a couple of houses away from the bus stop to go home. And she was so sad and so depressed. And so the health coach in me came out and I started talking to her. And I said, could you go next door and walk to your next door neighbor's house? I can't. Everything I said, she said, I can't. And I said, could you walk to the end of your driveway? And just for a split second, she said, I think I can. And that's all it took. And I said, okay, walk to your driveway and rest and walk back. The next day, do it again, eventually go further and further, walk maybe twice. And then when you're good at that, walk next door. And then walk the further, the next house down, the next house down, and then walk to the end of the street and then walk around the block. I mean, it's just simple things that we all know, but she had no confidence or no hope. And as I was riding into New York City, I got a text message from this sweet young lady. And she said, I have to tell you, I just signed up for my first 5K walk. And y'all, that's 3.1 miles. The same lady who couldn't even walk 2 houses down to get home, had to wait for her brother. She had just signed up for her first 5K. And she said, Tracy, I didn't even think about losing weight. She said, the weight is coming off of me and I'm really not making any changes, except I walk every day and I walk all the time. And that's what I tell people is start small. It doesn't have to be a bike ride across the United States. It doesn't have to be a marathon. It doesn't have to even be a 5K walk, but walk into your driveway, find something you can do. It may just be getting up and down off your chair a few times without using your hands. Find things that challenges you, but not too much because you want to have success. And that sweet lady, her life has changed. She always says, my life changed because I met you. And I'm like, no, my life changed because I met you because you're actually doing it. And her life exemplifies her family is now healthy. I mean, her neighbors are healthy. I mean, the ripple effect, not just a sweet young lady, but the whole entire community of hers is now getting healthy. And that's what it's about. I mean, it's just simple things like that. Find things you enjoy and do them. Because if you enjoy it, you're going to do it over and over again. Just like food. I mean, there's some food that's healthy that I can't stand. I don't eat it. If I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it. There's some exercise I can't stand. I don't do it because that doesn't work for me. So find activities you enjoy, find the right kinds of foods, and you're going to be shocked how much more energy you have, how much further you can go in just a few short weeks. It's not rocket science, but we try to make it because we tell ourselves, I can't. Just like that sweet lady, I can't do it. I can't do it. No, you can do it. Start today and just do one little thing. Just walk to your driveway. And that was one of the highlights of my ride. I mean, I had highlights like that throughout the whole entire trip, but that's a great example of how somebody who was stuck in their stinking thinking transformed from I can't to I can, and now is thriving like no other person I know.
Well, Tracy, I have to say, I mean, anyone watching you or listen, I mean, I'm just like, holding my hands here and watching you. I mean, talking about energy,
Mm-hmm.
it just oozes through that. I mean, through my screen, literally, it's coming up, and you can hear it, folks. If you're watching or listening right now, you can see that energy, and it is first of all passion. I think you have
Mm-hmm.
passion
Yes.
for what you do,
Yes. Yes.
and so that kind of really just projects on its own. But really, you have energy physically, and that's because of your practical habits that you've
Mm-hmm.
established over 40 plus years. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's you can't take that lightly, folks. I mean, and I love the example that you've given of this particular young person who had this weight problem that
Mm-hmm.
took one conversation and a spark took place, and the rest is history. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, we all are capable of that. And
Mm-hmm.
you hit on a big concept of people stuck with the impossible. I can't do this. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult, and yet you can just switch it I can. And I love what you said. It takes one step.
Mm-hmm.
Start with the
Mm-hmm.
first step. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
A marathon starts with one step. A sprint
Mm-hmm.
starts with one step. Business starts with one step. One step, 1 degree. These are the things that can make a difference. One step at a time. And then you said it. I mean, you don't have to go to these major events and do big stuff. I mean, you can
Mm-hmm.
literally stand, in front of a TV and just keep,
Mm-hmm.
walking on the same
Mm-hmm.
spot. I mean, like in place. You
Mm-hmm.
can jog in place. You can, jump in place. You can do all kind of these movements. And by the way, you don't have to go crazy and
Right.
do hit training, and you can
Mm-hmm.
build to that stamina into that
Mm-hmm.
cardio business, and it will you will work for you. And again, it's all about that mindset concept, the change. And I love the your philosophy. Do not be bitter, be
Mm-hmm.
better. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I think all of us, we need to hear these things. I mean, listen, I hear you. This actually amplifies my own person, right? Because I hear this stuff, it keeps me pumped. I want to be just like that, because the more you hear positive, the more you're gonna lean towards positive. The more you hear
Exactly.
negative, so you gotta cut off anything negative that's coming. It's like you gotta turn down or tune off or turn off the actual feed from that frequency that is completely
Mm-hmm.
bad, and just keep that dish receiving the good stuff. And this is
Oh
the good
yeah.
stuff. And better is better than bitter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
better. better is better than bitter. Okay. That came up. Yeah, I don't know where, but it's funny, but it's fact, right? You want
Hmm.
to be better, and
Hmm.
what's the point of being bitter about life? I mean,
Yeah.
it's negative. It's gonna keep, like, and by the way, we're talking psychology 101. The more you
Hmm.
say bad things, the
Hmm.
more your mind's gonna like make those things real, and that's who you become. And
Hmm.
it's not me saying it. This is stuff. I mean, I've had so many shows about these discussions, about with some experts about these and psychiatry, and it's
Hmm.
really the same thing. It's really your mind is the most powerful tool that we have, and it does absorb whatever you hear and see. And if you feed it the right ingredients, it's just gonna like flourish. If you feed it
Hmm.
the wrong, it's just gonna like collapse. What you're doing right now is really giving our audiences in the world, and you've been doing this for years and years and years, decades. First of all, you've proven a lot of people that they have
Hmm.
to think twice about these things, and they should, maybe. I have to say, if that doctor is still alive, and they should just tell you, they should have told you, like right now, they say, you know what, next time they meet someone's like, listen, you have this, but you can make a difference. See, I think
Yes.
that's the plus. And if
Hmm.
there's a doctor watching, I love my doctors, this
Hmm.
could be a very easy, way of saying it. Like, listen, you have doomsday message here, but there
Hmm.
is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can make a difference. We have real examples that can make a difference, and that's all there is. Once you start, because if you give me that hope, you know hope is powerful, right? It's going to
Exactly.
change it. If you lose hope in life, that's it. I mean, you
Hmm.
will actually destroy your own self, because then,
Hmm.
what, I'm dying anyways, it's word, let me just finish it up. And then
Hmm.
you start
Hmm.
doing the opposite, where you're going to take all the bad ingredients, all the bad food, and then now everything is like, instead of 20, it becomes 10, right?
Right.
You'll just make
Exactly.
it quicker.
Hmm.
And that's not something we want. We want just a
Hmm.
reinforced positivity that, listen, it's bad, but there has been a lot of experiences, a lot of cases where this didn't mean anything, and people live a healthy, longer life. Longevity
Hmm.
is there with
Hmm.
vitality. It's not just longevity, but vitality is attached to that. So those are like key elements. Now I want to talk about that. Your cycling
Hmm.
experience. I mean,
Hmm.
what gave you? I mean, was that something that you planned as a? I mean, you said it. This, like, every decade you did something different.
Hmm.
But what? Why San Francisco to New York specifically? I guess you had the show with Dr. Oz, but
Hmm.
was it planned that way, or it just happened to be like, we had the show and let me just do it this way and make a difference?
No, we didn't have anything lined up. I didn't even know Dr. Oz read one of my, or his producer, one of his producers read one of my press releases. When I was in Chicago, I got the phone call from his producer saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you finish the ride on our show.
Wow.
Could you make these days?" But we had no plans at all, except I knew I wanted to go from coast to coast, because anything else is kind of wimpy, I guess. I don't know. I thought, if this old lady, and I'm not old, I don't consider myself old, but that's what I told a lot of these kids I spoke to at the hospitals and of community centers and schools and things like that. I would always say, if this old lady can do it, what's keeping you from doing it? And so I started at the Golden Gate Bridge. Actually, my daughter's the one that recommended it. She said, go bridge to bridge. Everybody knows the Golden Gate Bridge. Everybody knows the Brooklyn Bridge. You don't have to explain anything. And so that's where I went from there. I just knew I was going to leave California, the Pacific Ocean, and arrive somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean in New York, but had no plans. But, it goes back to when I left the Golden Gate Bridge. If I would have sat there and said, I have 3,527 miles until I reach the Brooklyn Bridge, I would have been overwhelmed. But instead, every day I told myself, I'm going for a bike ride, just like we did as kids. And it became every day I would get inch and inch and inch closer to New York City. And a mom who, her daughter at the time was 6 years old, had been living with diabetes, the same kind I have, type 1 diabetes, for 4 years. So she was diagnosed at 2 years old, and she had already given up hope on life. And the mom was saying, we're so excited to watch your journey across the country because it's giving my daughter hope. And she went out and bought her daughter a map of the United States. And then she cut out a pair of a bicycle with scissors and then my head. And she tracked me along the whole entire journey. And so every day I thought, she's on my team. You have to have the right support. You have to be doing things for a reason. That's why I always tell people, hey, get out and find somebody to walk with. Don't walk by yourself all the time because you need somebody to make that accountable. So when it was tough, climbing over the Sierra Mountains or something like that, I knew this little girl was on my team and I knew I had to keep going. So it's the same thing in life. Don't expect to ride 3,527 miles or even 5 miles on your bicycle, but break it down and say, you know what? I could ride around the block this week. And then maybe next week, 2 blocks. The same exact thing like we mentioned earlier. One step equals huge results. You just have to go every day, but don't lose hope and keep focused on why you're wanting to reach your goals. Now, I can't tell you what goals to reach. I can't tell you do this for, or even your doctor shouldn't say, you got to lose weight because blank. You have to have it internally to know why you want to lose weight. So you tell yourself, why do I want to lose weight? Is it for a vacation? No, that's not good thinking. No, I want to live a longer, healthier, more active life. That's the kind of thing you want to be. I don't want to sit on a rocking chair in my 70s or 80s and watching life go by. Now, some people may want to. I don't want to. I want to be out there backpacking. I want to be trekking across the country again on my bicycle because I love doing those kind of things. My husband and I just backpacked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. That's 10 miles straight down and carrying all your food, carrying all your supplies. And then we hike back out. Was it easy? No, we do it every decade. It was much easier in our 40s. And it was even easier in our 50s than it was in our 60s. But you know what? We did it because we knew what it took. And we just do it to make sure that we can keep going the way we want to. We don't want to spend our time sitting on a rocking chair. And it's so sad because we have so many friends over the years that are our age and they talk about things they can't do. Oh, my knee hurts, my hip hurts, my back hurts. I can't do anything. And I keep my mouth shut because the health coach in me wants to come out. But I sit there and I say, could you do something? No, I can't. Well, unfortunately, a lot of these people eat a lot of sugar, eat a lot of unhealthy foods, and are overweight. And not realizing if you cut back on some of those things and start losing some of the weight, you might not hurt as bad. There's technically nothing wrong with their skeletal system, so they don't need knee surgery, they don't need hip surgery or back surgery. But they're not willing to even think about it. Instead, they want the negativity about, I'm a victim. It's because I'm old. And I'm like, you're not old. Anyway, but you can't make people do it for them. They have to make the decision. I can't force somebody to do it, just like you can't, but you have to find people that are willing to partner up with you and encourage you. I always like to use the example, who's going to text you at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever time you want to get up and go for a run or a walk or something? Find that person. And then when you don't do it, they ask those tough questions because that's going to help you take control of your health so much more than just doing it by yourself or because, oh, my doctor said I need to start walking every day because I need to lose some weight. Not going to work. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. And first of all, I think everybody knows what makes sense. Let's be
Yes.
clear. I mean, we all know if someone's getting weight, they know that here's the first thing you will actually feel. You can't bend down to tie your shoes. Your pants are tight. You have to change your wardrobe. Things you start seeing the change. You have you breathe heavy. You can't walk up the stairs. Listen, I mean, I've experienced weight, gain at a point in my life where I went about 40 pounds over what I need to be. And I felt my knees were hurting. I couldn't even climb the stairs. It was just getting, like nothing to your point, skeletal wise, everything was good, but the weight is playing a number on your joint. And when it was almost by default, I was just like, okay, whatever. I was just chilling and not doing anything. And I did all the bad things in that year. And I realized it was not. And then it took me a couple years to actually get back to where I needed to be because, it's very easy to gain. It's a lot harder to lose.
Yes.
You have to pick up those habits. And definitely training was part of that. I mean, you have to train. You have to do. And we're not talking about intensive training. Like you said, walking is like the most common thing. And if you did it every day consistently for a period, at least half hour to an hour, if you can pull it off, you can do a lot of things now walking. You can listen to books, you can listen to podcasts, you can do business. Like, we were talking about, you're crossing, you can still work, when you take a pause, you can do some stuff. You can call people, coach them on you. A lot of things can be done. So it's not very difficult with the technology we have. It's not even difficult.
Mhm.
That's it. And Tracy, you said something very, very powerful about your journey, for example, from the Golden Bridge to the Brooklyn Bridge. And the
Mhm.
one thing you said is that I didn't think about it at 5,327 miles. You thought about it like I'm taking a bike ride on a day-to-day basis, one day at a time,
Mhm.
one, a piece of, segment at a time. And
Mhm.
by the way, that is exactly what any journey to success is.
Right.
First of all, there's a couple of things there. One, you set the goal. The
Mhm.
goal is the vision. That's like where
Mhm.
you have, and that goes for
Mhm.
business, goes for personal
Mhm.
goals, for everything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then you have these sub goals that are in there. That every day you're going to have a little achievement.
Mhm.
One piece at a time, and that's what you do. So you set a 5-year term goal. A cross country goal, a marathon goal, whatever, and then you build
Mhm.
1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, and you build.
Mhm.
And if everybody listening, watching, you apply this rule, this is a golden rule. It's a worldwide rule. It works. It's
Mhm.
worked for everybody that applied it, and it will always work for you. Because I love what you said. You get overwhelmed. You see that journey. Oh my God, I'm gonna climb to Everest. Yeah, I mean
Mhm.
that's a big
Mhm.
mountain. But if you climb one level at a time, you're not looking at
Mhm.
Everest at tip. You're looking at the next, plateau where you're gonna go, and then so on and so forth. And you're gonna go one
Mhm.
level at a time.
Mhm.
It's a simple, and I love what you said about the support system. You had, people that were cheering for you, that were part of your journey, and so
Mhm.
you owed to them that you
Mhm.
want to do that, and in a way you felt that way because now this is not about me. This is about I'm giving motivation to some people. So now you have
Mhm.
another
Mhm.
reason, another
Mhm.
objective that's helping, and giving you that catapult, that nice push towards achieving and really finishing the
Mhm.
objective or the goal of getting to Brooklyn. And again, you're giving advice to people as well. And this is the thing, like when you train people, you learn more from the training. You actually
Mhm.
retain more. And if you
Mhm.
talk about these things the same way, those things become part of your vocabulary. They become also part of your work, flow. I mean, it's like you can't. The more we hear about it, the more you're going to do it, the more you're going to practice it, the more you're going to be part of your life. And
Mhm.
I love what you said about, age. And you and I, we had a brief discussion. It's a
Mhm.
number, folks.
Right.
Your age is how you determine it to be. You
Mhm.
can be in the 30s and feel like in the 50s. You can be in the 60s and feel like in the 40s or 30s. It's
Mhm.
it's it's up to you. Now,
Mhm.
granted, there are some genetic things. There are, and not,
Mhm.
physiology does have an impact to the
Right.
level of things. You're not the same stamina. Your hormones are different. Everything can
Mhm.
change over time.
Mhm.
But if you support it with the right stuff, as you said, you put junk,
Mhm.
your body is running on bad fuel. You put
Mhm.
premium, your body's going to run on premium, and so it's
Yeah.
going to give you more, premium life. And that's the other thing. Like you said it, you can decide to I'm just going to be lazy and live my life, and you're not going to live your life. You're going to survive your life in pain.
Mhm.
And by
Mhm.
the way, that's a choice, folks. We're not telling you
Mhm.
you have to change. If some people are like, well,
Right.
who are you to tell me like, I love my
Mhm.
life? Well, do you really love? And that's the other thing. Do
Mhm.
you love your
Mhm.
life really? I mean, I guarantee you, if you look in the mirror and we all do it, right? We all wake up,
Mhm.
we shower, do
Mhm.
stuff, we look at ourselves.
Mhm.
When something is off.
Right.
We
Right.
all have this discussion like, oh, something is off. I'm getting
Uh-huh.
old. I'm getting white hair. I'm getting. We ask these things and we talk. We have self talk, to ourselves. And when your body is not looking right or you're feeling wrong, or you're pain, and so like, what am I doing to contribute to this? That's really
Mhm.
it. And if you
Mhm.
ask these questions, you will quickly find the answers. And the answer is like, I
Yes.
gotta make it move. And the can'ts, I'm not gonna do it. The
Mhm.
don'ts, I'm not gonna do it. The impossibles, I'm not gonna do it. I just put something the other day. I was testing an AI app, and I put a little bit of a quote, from an AI character, and all it says basically it was they said it was impossible. I said, watch me. And that was really it. But really, I
Mhm.
mean, you've heard that, folks, you probably heard this over and over. It's all over the place. And I was just testing it on this particular AI to see if it really works the way they stated on social media. But that message resonates. I mean,
Mhm.
like impossible is impossible, right?
Mhm.
It's how you look at things. Again, mindset shift, change. We all have the capability, folks. We might be
Right.
just, voicing it to you. So if you're watching or listening right now, you're just hearing this. And sometimes you probably heard this before over and over and over. But redundancy of hearing stuff makes it a habit, just like it is.
Mhm.
Practice makes
Mhm.
perfect. The more we
Mhm.
hear it, the more it becomes our part of our vocabulary. I mean, I talk about this almost every week, and it's become me. I mean, literally, you got to see me talking to my kids and my wife and I are very similar. And that's the other thing I was going to tell you. You have also a significant other, a spouse that is
Mhm.
aligned with your mission. You guys do
Mm-hmm.
things together. You said we went down the canyon. You didn't say
Mm-hmm.
I went down the canyon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that, and you said we did it in the 40s and the 50s. Now I know that you did. You said it automatically because it happened, and the fact of the matter, it's that's another thing. Like your support system is the people around you have to also buy into your mission and work towards the same. If
Yeah,
not, you're gonna have issues. So I'm gonna pause
absolutely.
it. I'm gonna pause there. So,
But what's interesting though is my husband, and he's given me permission to share this, is, he has lived with me for a long time, and he knew what I believed. He knew he could hear me coach sometimes, some of my people, and he would not believe it. He'd be like, nope, 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 nope. Anyway, then all of a sudden one day that light bulb went off and he started getting healthy. He started asking me questions. I didn't tell him. I waited for him to ask me. And now, 25 years later, he was overweight. He was like 30 pounds overweight. He's lost the weight. He's kept it off. He's off all three of his medications he was on. And he's living a life now in his late 60s, like he should have in his 40s, but he didn't even know what would have felt like in his 40s because he was not doing what he should have been doing. And so he loves everything about this because his goal is to keep hiking and keep backpacking as long as he can. So, we all have different goals. But speaking of goals, you got to understand that when you set goals, you have to expect setbacks because they will happen. And you just have to pick yourself up and say, okay, maybe I didn't eat the right kind of foods that day, or maybe I didn't exercise. But that next moment, change your mind and say, okay, I messed up. Now I'm going to move forward. That's the thing about setting goals is so many people fail and then they say, I can't do it. Well, nobody's perfect, like I mentioned earlier. So that's one of my recommendations is realize in advance that you're going to slip back and you're going to have a setback. So take that setback and then move forward with it.
well, thank you. And setbacks are huge, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really what people are afraid of. See,
Yes.
people anticipate setbacks up front, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore
Mm-hmm.
they almost like, oh, I can't do this. There's too many. It's like if you're looking at all of the barriers, you're like, oh, that's too steep. I'm not going to be able to do this. But
Mm-hmm.
think about there's no setbacks, and if they happen, you deal with them. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
chop them slowly but surely. You can remove them one piece at a time, and you can do it. Yeah, I give you an example in my neighborhood, and this is going to be silly, but they don't pick up big items like when I lived in New York, on Thursday you can put anything outside and the sanitation will come in and take big bulk stuff, whether coat couches and whatever. So in Jersey we don't have that, so it's private. So what I do for every time I have something big, I break it down to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
then
yes.
I just break it down to pieces and then they take it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that it's an example, but really it's a big thing. Now I can look at it or I can break it down and just remove it slowly but surely, and it's in a couple of times it'll be gone. But the key
Mm-hmm.
is it's still gone. It's not in front of you, and that's exactly an example of
Yeah.
real life stuff. You will see it. You set a goal, and you will anticipate all the bad moves and all the things that happen, and those that you anticipate, sometimes you can figure out solutions, but there are things that come you know unknown. I mean, they just happen. I mean, you don't know about them. They just show up. In business it
Mm-hmm.
happens all the time. You think that
Mm-hmm.
you have a whole good plan and then boom, something happens. Listen, we had a big setback in 3 years ago. It's called pandemic. No
Yes.
one realized that it would happen. Nobody even, I mean, maybe some people know, I don't know. I'm not going
Yeah.
political here, but when it happened, nobody realized how bad it would be. But
Mm-hmm.
we survived it, folks. If we're
Mm-hmm.
listening again here, we have survived it. Now, I mean, it was tragic. We lost a lot of lives,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, no one expected that. And
Right.
the world still had to adjust to it, and individuals
Mm-hmm.
had to adjust to it. Families have to adjust to it. With loss or no loss, we all had to suffer through it somehow. But it's just how the resilience, lived on, right? We worked through it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the circumstances are. I mean, through hospitals, everything. I mean, it was difficult for everybody. And that's just an example that was global, but everybody's
Mm-hmm.
going through the same.
When I
Now,
was on my bike ride, I was leaving Truckee, California for Reno, Nevada, and it was only supposed to be 3 hours according to my GPS. And about 4 hours later, I'm thinking I'm in Nowheresville. And I had to get off my bicycle and I had to carry my bicycle up a mountain. Huge boulders, huge boulders. I was out of food. I was out of water because I was only supposed to be 3 hours. So by this time, it's like 6 hours. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I had no cell service or anything. When I got to the top of the mountain and I could look over, I had cell service, and I thought, okay, I could call the park rangers and I could say, I need somebody to rescue me, but my ride would be over. And I thought, Tracy, That's a town down there. It may not be Reno, but you get yourself down there and you'll get GPS again. So I climbed, after climbing up that steep mountain, and I'm climbing down, sliding over these big, huge boulders, but I didn't give up. I realized I knew setbacks were going to happen, like they did the entire ride, but I knew it in advance so I could prepare for it. And then I kept going and finally made it to Reno, but it only took me 8 hours instead of 3 hours because I climbed a mountain. But you know what? I made it and the ride could continue. So whatever you're struggling with, little things like that, just keep your eye on the prize. And for me, I would visualize. I'm a big visualization person. That's huge for anything, business, health, anything. But I would visualize when I was really tired or really having a hard day, I'd visualize New York City in my mind. And so I'd keep pedaling every day, getting closer and closer to New York City.
Well, thank you. I mean, so basically, it was a detour,
Exactly.
and in life, you're gonna have detours.
Mm-hmm.
There's no linear, there's no direct line. I mean, although in quantum physics, they say like like for example, you always hear this question: what is the nearest distance between 2 points? And they basically put a straight line. But if you take a
Mm-hmm.
page and bend it over, like to the extremes, you basically kind of bend time and space, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's quantum stuff in there, but the idea is in real life, you think it's a long, straight line, but there's always something, that can happen that detours
Mm-hmm.
you, whatever. And it happened to you. You lost, your GPS and you were like in the middle of nowhere. But
Mm-hmm.
you could have said, okay, it's over. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the key word, giving up.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes they just give up too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And
Uh-huh.
again, I always refer to this. You've probably seen this meme or picture everywhere on the net. Where the guy is digging for diamonds, and then he decides to walk away to leave, and he was literally just behind the next hit. And you
Mm-hmm.
never know when that's gonna hit, right? But
Mm-hmm.
once you're into something and you have your goal, don't stop. You just keep going. You'll
Mm-hmm.
hit it no matter what. It might take longer. You
Mm-hmm.
might listen. We all guesstimate stuff. We think 5 years
Mm-hmm.
is the timeline. Maybe it's not 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
because there's factors that sometimes you don't know, or things can happen. There's delays. There's many things that can happen, but it will happen as long as you're in it. You're gonna win it. Now, I love the eyes on the prize kind of concept, and the visualization is a powerful tool. I use it. I mean, again, I was interviewed about my media company and like what would I see it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I literally can see the awards. I can see things. I mean, I'm sharing it
Mm-hmm.
now, and time only will tell. There will be a day where there will be the NBC Network Awards, and there will be a gala and all the stuff, and we're gonna have a good time about this. We'll invite all our guests, and we'll have top podcasters and top guests, but yeah, that's how I see it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
is it gonna happen tomorrow? Maybe not. I'm
Mm-hmm.
working towards it, and we're gonna go there one way or the other. I can see, slowly but surely we get in there, and I'm not gonna give up on it no matter what. And
Mm-hmm.
that's that. So I'm just giving an example for me, and this
Mm-hmm.
applies again to your point in every single situation in life, in
Mm-hmm.
your situation, in your family. If you have a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
people give up too soon in their relationships. They don't want to make them work. At the first bump, oops, now okay, we're splitting. People do that with family members. People do it at work. The first, oh, I'm quitting or the job. You got to give it your best, and once you give it, all the way, and there's no more moves. I mean, it's like a chess game, right? I mean, there's a lot of ways to play. But there's a point where it's checkmate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you go to that point, but you can't give up before you get to that last, move,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really it.
Exactly.
So now I want to talk about the diabetes piece.
Mm-hmm.
What are the contributors in today's world for diabetes? I mean, you've probably done quite a bit of research in the subject, and you wrote the books and all the stuff. What have you noticed over the years? I mean, ultimately, you had the juvenile diabetes type of concept. That's actually, I think, genetics. Am I getting that
Except,
wrong?
no, you're right. Typically, I didn't have anybody in my family that has ever had it. So I
Oh,
got the flu and the flu attacked my pancreas. Long, long story. But anyway, nobody in my family has had it. Typically, people with type 1 diabetes are diagnosed as children, but not now. Even ladies and men in their 60s and 70s are being diagnosed with type 1 juvenile diabetes. It's the craziest thing. Now, type 2 diabetes, or what we used to call adult onset, is prevalent. That's 95% of people with diabetes have type 2 diabetes or adult onset diabetes. And most of the time, but not all the time, it's lifestyle related. Eating the ultra processed foods, not getting the exercise, those kind of things that we've talked about throughout this, this interview. But the thing is, though, what's so sad, in my opinion, is now children are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, adult onset diabetes, and it's so correlated with screen time. They're seeing more children that spend more time in front of the screens are having an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which was unheard of even in the 80s and in the 90s. But if you go back and you look at pictures, I grew up in the 60s, and these people in the 60s and 70s look totally different than they do today. We're talking body style, totally different. And whatever the reasons, there's a lot of controversy out there, but we don't eat the kind of foods today that I ate as a kid and even as a teenager, because we were eating at home all the time. Our grandparents, our mothers cooked for us all the time. Today, if our grandparents or our grandmothers or our mothers were still alive, most of the stuff in these box foods, they wouldn't even know what that meant, because that would be foreign to them, all these processed things that we have. And so much of it is environment. We have a lot more toxics in the environment, but the most important thing is, if you don't want diabetes, which, trust me, you don't, is you want to really watch what you eat and watch how you exercise. And if you have prediabetes, which unfortunately 1 in 3 Americans have prediabetes and they don't even know it. But what's exciting is, with people with prediabetes, is you can totally reverse that. And sometimes even type 2 diabetes, but prediabetes, just do intermittent fasting if you're not on any kind of medication to lower your blood sugar, and go, eat dinner at 6 o'clock or whatever time you normally eat. Don't snack. I mean, we never snacked as kids when we were growing up. And then don't eat again until noon or whatever time you want to eat breakfast. Most of the days I eat dinner at 6 p.m. and then I don't eat again until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. That works well for me with my diabetes, though, but it really works well for my body because I'm very careful with what I do to my body. But there's so many people that, instead of saying, oh, I just want to take a pill because I don't want to do the exercise, I don't want to do the work that it takes. And I say exercise, I don't mean physical fitness. I mean the exercise and having the mental clarity to take control of your health. It's so simple, but not for people with type 1 diabetes and what I have, what used to be called juvenile diabetes. That's just hit or miss. Yeah, you can maybe prolong it a little bit by eating healthy, but not really. 99.9999% of the people with type 1 diabetes get it instantly, and they're in the ICU just like I was, and their life has changed instantly. And without insulin, I die. I mean, everywhere I go, my bike ride across the country, backpacking, I carry insulin with me so I can take insulin every day throughout the day, because again, without it, I die. People with type 2 diabetes, most of the time, they don't start off with insulin. They start off with maybe oral medication.
Metformin, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the number one thing. But the thing is, though, if they don't learn the strategies, oftentimes that'll result in then having to start taking insulin shots. And that's not fun either, let me tell you. But that's the way it is.
No, but thank you. And I'm just to give you an example. With my mom, when she was diagnosed, we got lucky. The endocrinologist, doctor that we had her on, he was a great doctor. I salute him from here. And what he did, I worked at a hospital, so we worked actually in the same company. And so I was on the insurance side, he was in the hospital side, but he was like, we practiced, we worked with him. And when I introduced him to mom, he just said, listen, she can go on the metformins and stuff, but it's only gonna delay the obvious. So we're gonna get her on the insulin early on, so that will actually give her better longevity of health and stuff, and really work her body better as opposed to destroy her body faster. And actually that did work. Eventually took, 32 years later, and obviously she's still on insulin, but her dosage went up, and she's not even taking the metformin as much as she did in the beginning, right? And so it shifted. Now, obviously, she gained weight. She's much older, and of course, when you're hitting a higher age, just not as mobile as the last couple of years, she hasn't been as active as she used to be. So that also, and then you hit on those three. You talked about nutrition, which is, by the way, you're right, in the 70s and the 60s. Even in the 80s, the food was different. And you're right. The stuff today is completely different from one. we have a dilemma, and we hear this all the time. I don't know if you hear it as well, but anyone watching and listening, now again, this show is worldwide, so this may vary by land, but in
Mhm.
the U.S.
Mhm.
specifically, in
Mhm.
our world, Europe is a little bit different, and maybe you
Mhm.
go further down, to the other side, it's probably less. But in the U.S., you'll see a lot more obesity than, for example, in Europe. But here's the thing: like we have food at home, fridge is
Mhm.
full, the cabinets are full, and it's
Mhm.
got vegetables and the meats and stuff. And my kids will open up everything. It's like there's nothing to eat.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, literally, this is like a line we hear all the time. There's
Mhm.
never, Dad, can you get us some more stuff? Like, what do you want? Well, we want snacks. That's what the food is. It's like,
Mhm.
these
Mhm.
chips and bags and cookies and stuff. That's what they refer to as food,
Mhm.
and or junk food, which would be like fast food. They
Mhm.
want the McDonald's, the burgers, and the fried
Mhm.
chicken and stuff. That's all. I mean,
Mhm.
like I make a joke. In about a decade or two, we're probably not going to have many menus in the restaurants other than fries, nuggets, tenders,
Mhm.
hot dogs and pizza. I mean, that's really and probably mac and cheese. Those are the elements of. And
Mhm.
if you go to a
Mhm.
restaurant, I was in a restaurant about a week ago, and it was a nice, it was actually Turkish food, and
Mhm.
so there was a family in front of us. And then all of a sudden, I see the kids ordering burgers. My son ordered pasta. So we have a pasta dude, in a Turkish food restaurant, which is much richer, cuisine type of thing,
Mhm.
Mediterranean
Mhm.
stuff.
Oh
And then
yeah.
here's another table where the kids are having a burger and fries. Now every restaurant has these on the menu because they know,
Mhm.
the new generation is not going to do it. They don't eat
Mhm.
vegetables. That's the other thing. Like my son it barely eats any vegetables. He likes carrots. That's it. Fruits, forget about it. I mean, he won't even touch fruit.
Mm.
And so all the healthy stuff they're not into it. They're even the meats. I don't like this meat. I don't like this one. It's very different. The other thing is we had a different lifestyle. You said it. People are from their screens. I don't think so much because the screen is affecting all this EMFs and all the stuff that happens.
Yeah.
I think it's
Right.
so. I think it's so much the fact that they just sit. They cut
Sit.
potatoes
Mhm.
for for
Yep.
for hours and hours and hours, and everything is being ordered. They eat on the same spot.
Yes.
And that's all there is. As opposed
Mhm.
to we played outdoors
Mhm.
and we sweat
Mhm.
our butt off all day long, and you
Mhm.
come in from dusk to dawn or whatever,
Mhm.
or the
Mhm.
opposite.
Yeah.
From the
Yes.
daylight, to sunset, you go out,
Mhm.
and really run all night, I mean all
Mhm.
day, and then you
Mhm.
come in only to shower and sleep, eat and whatever, right?
Yep.
And that
Yep.
was a different lifestyle. So I
Mhm.
was super skinny. I have pictures that I was completely skinny. I mean, really,
Mhm.
and it was just that. I mean, because you were
Mhm.
super active.
Yep.
Our kids
Yep.
don't do that. They can't, and they gain weight quickly. And because of the nature of the food, and again, there's a lot of sugar stuff. All these things are
Mhm.
carbs and sugar and sodium, all the bad stuff for you, and it just adds up quickly. I mean, we're supposed to have less than a spoon of sugar, if any, a natural
Mhm.
versus, like, and now we eat all these sugars. I mean, you
Mhm.
talked about the movies, your story, like when you were, at that point and you went to the movies, everybody
Mhm.
is lured to the movies by popcorn smell. And then you go in, it's
Mhm.
like you have the Dutch, the milk Dutch, you have the Twizzlers,
Mhm.
you have the standard, and then you have
Yep.
the drinks, right? Those come handy. Now you get a big gulp of drink or icy,
Mhm.
whatever. That's like,
Mhm.
200 calories, or actually 1,000 calories with a lot of sugar. Then you get your
Mhm.
Twizzlers and God knows what that they
Mhm.
made. And they're delicious. I have to say, I used to love them, you know, and then you have your popcorns and,
Mhm.
you have your nachos, and by the time you finish, you
Mhm.
just got yourself 3,000 calories, and
Mhm.
you lost none, and you had a few meals. And what do you think? You're getting 6,000 calories. That stuff is just not going anywhere. It's
Right. Right.
your insulin, your pancreas is going to just
Mhm.
be overwhelmed and do stuff.
Mhm.
Your liver is going to be overwhelmed and stuff.
Mhm.
You also talked about intermittent fasting. That's
Mhm.
detoxification. Your body gets
Mhm.
enough time to
Mhm.
relax, to the liver
Mhm.
to work. So again, these are all the different things that we're supposed to. We need to detox. We need to eat, healthy nutrition. We have to move and
Mhm.
have exercise.
Mhm.
If you did this, you should be good. Now, I love what you said about the diabetes concept. That is more than ever today because of the
Mhm.
lifestyles, and it's
Mhm.
only going to get worse.
Mhm.
And again, we can compare ourselves to Europe, and that's that maybe Western to Western if you want to look at it from an advancement, in terms of country, and
Mhm.
society and economics.
Mhm.
They are skinnier. Their
Mhm.
lifestyle is different. You don't see
Mhm.
a lot of obese people in Europe, but we
Mhm.
have that here. Now, again, I'm sure someone is watching and listening. They might have a weight, situation. this is not putting down folks,
No, of
anyone.
course not. Right.
This is,
Right.
this is just to be clear that we're just highlighting what's happening. And it is
Hmm.
the real thing. You want to be healthy. And yes, weight does, it's going to affect you. And diabetes is going to be the first thing. If you gain weight, diabetes. Now, you said
Hmm.
pre-diabetic.
Hmm.
The A1C is that measure
Hmm.
that's used. So I think you
Hmm.
have to be less than 7, and when you get close to 7, that's pre-diabetic, and then you pass 7, you're in the hot waters, and then
Hmm.
it goes. I mean, that's already like where you need to be. So we need to be in the 5-4 mark if you can. Now, a lot of
Yes.
us, as you age, that's going to be a little tough. And I'm not a doctor. This is because I have been monitoring my mom's stuff and talking to my doctor, her doctor rather. We have the same doctor actually, but so and, he gives me a little bit of explanation how it is. Over 30
Hmm.
years, I learned that some of these things, but the fact is, that's what you need. So if your A1C comes in, at closer to the 6 mark, whatever, you got to do some work, and you can reverse
Hmm.
this. If you lose weight,
Hmm.
if you drops back again to 5-4, and you maintain it, you should be fine. But again, it's all monitoring, preventative, and doing the right
Hmm.
things. So thank you for bringing that and sharing that.
But not everybody can reverse their type 2 diabetes either, though. Some people just genetically are just, going to have it no matter what. But if you start eating healthy and start exercising, what we've talked about, though, your risk of developing the horrible complications fall exponentially. That's why, my A1C is in 5.6, 5.7, depending. Now, it's good according to the
Oh, that's
doctors,
excellent.
but I'm on insulin because, again, without insulin, I die. But the thing is, though, I could quit eating healthy and I'd go back up to the 6s and 7s. But why would I do that? I mean, so you really want to kind of play. And I look at it again with visualization. If I eat something that I know I shouldn't be eating, or I don't want to exercise, then I visualize something bad happening, like my arteries are clogging, or I will have my legs amputated, or something like that, just to keep me motivated. So I can use visualization, even negatively, to help me stay focused on what I'm struggling with that day. And that's why it's not a diabetes is so crazy. It's not one shoe fits all. And so you have to really figure out, if you have it, what can you do to live your best life? Because even if you had a twin brother, say, for example, and you all had type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, your both body responds totally different. So what works for you is not going to work for him, even though you're twins. Does that make sense?
Oh
And so you
yes.
really want to figure out what works best for you. And I'm a huge believer in journaling, food journaling for a couple of weeks, writing down everything you eat and then how you feel, how you sleep, everything from how much water you drank. Because oftentimes we think we're hungry and we're just dehydrated. So just drink a glass of water and wait 15 minutes and see if you're still hungry. That's a good cue for people without diabetes. Now, if you have diabetes, you need to check your blood sugar. We're talking just general health now, but there's so many things you can do. Drink a glass of water before you eat a meal, and you're going to consume fewer calories. I mean, there's science behind that. So, I mean, just simple things like that you can do, that everybody needs to drink water anyway, and just chug down a glass of water before you eat and watch the difference in how much calories you consume.
Well, thank you. And today's technology, I mean, you have like the
Yeah.
Libra, you
Yes.
plug that in, you can
Mhm.
monitor your sugar all day long, and it beeps, and you can scan it, and so you don't have to wait until it crashes up or down. I mean, as soon
Correct.
as it gets to a point, you know that you need to get a pump, or you need to get a food or whatever. So you
Hmm.
have those things. So we have all the advancement to live healthier. And by the way,
Hmm.
thank you for clarifying the idea that it's not for everyone. I mean, everybody's going to have a different response. But if we all did it correctly, there's a good
Hmm.
chance to your point, your kidneys are not going to be as affected. Your
Hmm.
eyesight is not going to be affected. Because I can tell you, this happened. At a point, my mom's sugar was up, and she started bleeding in her eye, and she started,
Hmm.
like, literally for a day or so, that she had, she couldn't see in one part of the eye because of the blood there. And of course, she did the
Hmm.
laser treatment, and then that blood kind of disappeared. And luckily, since then, that never happened again. But I can
Yeah.
tell you, that's just an example that I can share with you. And people, you talked about amputee, losing your leg and having
Hmm.
amputation. Those are, like, it can happen with diabetes. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
silent killer. It affects a lot of the stuff. And you're
Hmm.
right. And then, of course, now you have cholesterol, you have, blood pressure, everything that, call them the three stooges. They come together as
Yes.
as a
Yes.
triplet. you know.
Uh-huh.
Well, Tracy, now you become a coach, wellness coach, basically. Was
Hmm.
this specifically because of your stuff, or that was, just like your ambition, like you just decided to help people?
I actually fought it for years and years and years being a coach. I would coach people all the time, and people were like, this is amazing. But I would fight it saying, oh, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this. But I've been researching medical stuff for 47 years now. And I still research every day because I know it could help me and other people. And so I've been doing it full time now for about 20 years, but I've been coaching. I actually had my first coaching client in the hospital when I was 17 years old, a man who has just recently been diagnosed with adult diabetes, and he didn't understand stuff. And so I started coaching him then. And we even worked after the fact. When I got out of the hospital, he and I still worked together. And so I guess it's what gets me up in the morning, because I don't want people not to have hope. And when you realize how simple it is, it's not always easy, but how simple it is to start having energy and start feeling so much better. You're like, oh, I've got to do this. And my first book I wrote, one of my doctors that heard me speak, he went and bought a case of my books. And I thought, but that's so interesting, because he was skimming through it. And he said, this is what I tell my patients all the time, but it's based on layman's terms and what you do and what to do. And so things like that. And so, I've written 3 books now. My last book is Longevity Codes, and it's based on how to live a longer, healthier life, because as I age and everybody's aging, they want to live longer. And a great example is, it was just 10 people in this study, but they did a study in a nursing home where 10 bedridden patients couldn't get out of bed for anything. And they started doing just a little bit of weights, just a little bit of resistance training in bed. And when the study was over 3 months later, 6 of them were able to walk to the dining room. 3 of them were able to take a wheelchair down to the dining room. And then that one last person, he was still in his bed. But the nice thing is, as we age, isolation is so scary. But there were people, all but one was able to start going back to the dining hall just by doing simple things in a bed. And it's like, if they're 90 years old and bedridden, imagine what you can do at any age. So that's why the researching is just a natural fit for me, because I need to know what's going on in the world, and I have for 47 years. But the coaching part is something that's what gets me up in the morning. And obviously that's what pays the bills. But that's what really, when people realize how simple it is, and so many people just need accountability. I need help with this. Can you help me? And we're all in this planet rock, that rock together, this planet Earth, but what we do to help each other is what we need to do to thrive, because it's so important to have better health, especially as we age, and especially when you don't want to be on the rocking chair on the front porch unless that's what you want. And that's not what most people want nowadays.
Well, thank you. And and I I love you. I mean, you said it, you started a long time ago, but you made this, as your work. And you know what? It's funny because, again, yeah, you mentioned it pays the bills, but it pays the bills and you have the passion for it. So now you do it, with pleasure, and it's happening.
Yes.
You don't have to do it because you're obligated to. You do it because you
Right.
love it, and it's
Yes.
really working out. And there is a pleasure also beyond just the pay piece of it. Is more
Yeah.
helping people. You're
Mhm.
making changes to people's lives and giving them the hope and the opportunity to potentially live with vitality and happier and healthier. Now you
Mhm.
have 3 books. I can see them: Diabetes,
Mhm.
Tragedy,
Mhm.
Triumph. You have the Ride of Hope, and you have the Longevity Code, which you mentioned.
Mhm.
Now, can you talk a little bit about what are the longevity codes? I mean, is there like a system? Or, I mean, obviously, I would recommend that people do click the link of your website so they can actually get into the books and find more. Maybe you can order them and things like that. But like, what are some of the highlights that you can share? That are there? Because you said the doctors were impressed about and because if it's layman terms, it's going to be easier to actually break down to people, right?
Correct. And the thing is, though, for me, I don't believe in anything that's not science-based. And so I even have like footnotes with the research that I use in this book, because it's so important. Because, we've all heard it. I mean, you've heard it, take this pill and you won't have diabetes, or take this pill and you'll lose 20 pounds. Those things don't work. And I call them snake oil salespeople. And I don't believe in that. So my book is based on this, especially the longevity codes, is based on more up-to-date information, like autophagy, which you get when you have, when you do intermittent fasting and so forth, the mitochondria and how important that is. I mean, it goes on in a lot of that kind of stuff. Supplements, it goes into a huge amount of supplements. Without vitamin D, if you've been diagnosed with diabetes, have your doctor check your vitamin D levels, because most people with diabetes are deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is a cure-all for everything. It's so important. And it's not a cure-all, but it helps your whole entire body work synergistically. And so there's all sorts of things on, the perfect diet, which is a play on words, because there's no such thing as perfect diet, but, talking about the Mediterranean, keto, and stuff like that, different kinds of meal plans that you can choose, and why they work and why they don't work. So it's a lot of based on just research on what works and what doesn't work, and things to try, the importance of sleep, the importance of stress, how sugar is addictive. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. That's when you hear about, like, when you
Sweet
think about
drug.
it. Yeah. And you think more addicted than cocaine, but it's true. So, when you start reading this and seeing these things, and then simple strategies on how to get rid of that toxic, attention to sugar, and then how you, reverse back out of that sugar addiction and come up with a different kind of, not addiction so much, but replace it. I'm all about replacement. Replace sugar with, the processed sugar, the donuts and stuff, with fresh fruit, especially strawberries and blueberries and blackberries. They don't spike your blood sugar very much, and they're so filling, and you're satisfied. So you don't have to deprive yourself. If you want a piece of chocolate, have a square of dark chocolate. Don't eat the milk chocolate. It's not as good for you. So that's kind of stuff that I talk about in the book.
Well, that's great advice stuff, and frankly, you're right. You can substitute things to healthier,
Mm-hmm.
versions. We had a show the other day, and we talked about dates,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
there, and my guest is like, that tastes like it's candy,
Mm-hmm.
and it does. It's sweet, but it's natural, and you're right. Like vitamin D, magnesium, these are all
Mm-hmm.
supplements that we
Mm-hmm.
need, and
Mm-hmm.
we. I think there is a study, or it's a fact that 90% of people have a deficiency in vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we don't have enough sun, and we don't have
Mm-hmm.
enough of it in the food. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you need like 40,000 whatever units, whatever, on a week, just to pump it, and it is, you got to get the right stuff. So this stuff, of course, folks, you need to consult with a coach and maybe a nutritionist or dietitian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Definitely always check out with your doctors or your
Mm-hmm.
primary to make sure that, everything is aligned, because you're right. You cannot be on some sort of medication and do certain diets, because then
Mm-hmm.
that can
Mm-hmm.
be bad for you. So always consult, even when you do exercise, that's the other thing. You
Mm-hmm.
don't just
Mm-hmm.
get into some sort of
Right.
exercise without checking. I love what you said earlier. You're doing your bike ride, but you still have to make sure that your insulin is with you. That's your partner.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
but it is, it's real. It's this stuff is important. Well, listen, we've exceeded our hour, but it was just, terrific stuff that
Yeah.
we've
Good.
covered. And, I want to thank you, Tracy, for really coming on and sharing your story, your feedback, in terms of like how to deal with diabetes and how to really live, a better life. And ultimately that's what it is. So I just want you to summarize to our audiences, maybe in one or two items, a piece of advice that you really want them to carry with them for the rest of their lives, and maybe share that torch with other people.
Number one is, don't ever lose hope. No matter whatever you're struggling with, don't lose hope. Find somebody that you can talk to. If you can't find somebody to talk to, give me a call. You can't go without hope. Without hope, we have nothing. So don't ever lose hope. Find what works best for you. Get your blood work checked. They'll even check magnesium levels and things like that to see if you are deficient. If you have problems sleeping at night, that would be the first thing I would do, is check your magnesium levels. Your blood pressure starts creeping up, make sure your magnesium levels are good. There's so many things you can do that you can help yourself right now with just a simple blood test, that you can start making changes. But most importantly, don't ever lose hope. As long as we have breath, we have hope, and you can accomplish whatever you set your mind to. Mhm.
that's gotta make a reel. That's well, Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today and for bringing, all this value. I mean, this is like the super value. I mean, here it's like, we get in the best of the best information. And some people say, well, what do you know about things? But I mean, nobody can argue with you about this because you've experienced it for a long
Mhm.
time and you're showing it. I mean, you're vibrant, your vitality is there, your energy is there. I
Mhm.
mean, everything that someone will probably say, like, "Oh man, I don't think that works." You're proving, that it works, and it's been working, and that's really what it is. So, um, listen, folks, after this show, you know what to do, right? And by the way, this is not about whoever's watching. You might know someone. I guarantee you
Mhm.
that in your
Mhm.
circle, somebody may have diabetes or be
Yes.
potentially at risk. And so talk to your friends, to your loved ones, and see if you see it bad. I guess practice or behavior in terms of food, and habits and things like that. There's a potential. You might want to get, a little discussion there. Share with them the value. Connect them, to the website, where Tracy's coaching is available, and whatever or whoever else that you feel. But the idea is that the help is there. You said it best. Hope is always
Mhm.
there. So there's always a way out, and you can make it happen. So that's about it, Tracy. Thank you so much for being with us
Thank you.
today.
I also have lots of free resources on my website because my gift is to help people have hope and what they can do for them improve their health. So,
Well, we're definitely gonna check it out. So, folks, you heard her. Check those free sources. If it's free, it's for me. We know that's that sentence, right? Well, check them out. You're not gonna lose anything. And your services are available worldwide, or
Mhm.
I mean,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's all through the
Yep.
yes
Hmm.
Zooms and
Hmm.
All right.
Yep.
So no excuse, folks. Doesn't matter where you are. You can get the help and you can get the guidance. All
Hmm.
right. Well, there you have it. So we're coming to the end of the show today. I hope you enjoyed this discussion and you've learned a few things. And definitely there's a resource here as always. So I'm your host, Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic. Bye for now.